All right, family. So we got official word after the longest shutdown in U.S. history. 40 days. The government's finally expected to reopen. Now, that alone should tell you everything you need to know about how cooked our political system is. 40 days, y'all. That's not normal. That's not business as usual. That's full-blown dysfunction. And what's crazy is how this ended, because if you watch what went down last night, the United States Senate advanced the bill to reopen the government. And they got exactly what they needed, 60 votes, as you guys can see on the screen. And that's the number needed to beat the filibuster, meaning enough people, including some Democrats, had to cross the aisle and vote for this thing just to move it forward. And that is where things start to get interesting, because this wasn't just about numbers, this was about narratives. This was a 40-day staring contest. And when the dust settled, it looks like the Democrats caved. And I'm not saying that with bias, I'm saying that with eyes. Because the GOP didn't give them what they wanted, the Republican Party. Because remember, what the Democrats were holding out for, temporary health care coverage for migrants, expanded aid, that kind of stuff. And they didn't get that, not even close. And they were trying to squeeze out policy wins using the shutdown as leverage. And when the pressure got too heavy, flights getting delayed, federal workers getting screwed, and the media started to say Congress is a disaster. They folded. And what's extra wild is the hypocrisy on the budget talk. Because remember, the entire argument against Trump's bill back when he dropped that big beautiful bill piece of legislation with tax cuts was it's going to explode the deficit, right? And they said it was going to add $2 to $3 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years. And now these same folks are pushing for a new spending bill that adds another trillion to the deficit, and it's like suddenly the math don't matter anymore. So what happened to the budget hawks? What happened to the fiscal responsibility? Oh, I guess it depends on who's spending it, huh? Because when it's tax cuts for Americans, it's dangerous. But when it's for emergency health care and government programs, magically that concern goes away. But again, they didn't even get that. They proposed all this new spending. They brought the government to a grinding halt. And what did they walk away with? Pretty much nothing. So you got Democrats furious right now because they're looking around like, what did we just do all that for? And it's real because that was pressure on the administration and there was a moment to fight. So we hit day 40. That's deep into a shutdown. At that point, the average American is not thinking about which side is right or wrong. They just want the country's back on track. So when the pressure hit, the Democrats cracked first, as you guys can see on the screen, when it came to the 60 vote, right? So then, with that being said, now you have that the House is coming back to Washington so they can reopen the government in a matter of days. Right now, it's looking like Thursday or Friday of this week. Most likely, we know that it's Monday. So just because they have reached an agreement in the Senate, the bill has to go back down to the House. They have to sign it, and then it has to hit the president's bill. I mean, hits the president's desk to sign the bill. So the government is technically not open yet until Donald Trump signs the bill, after it comes from the House sent to the president's desk. So I just want to make that clear and clarify that, because a lot of people don't know procedure and how government works. So when you look at all that, right? And it's important to remember that the Republicans were ready to pass the thing the whole time. The, continuing resolution to keep the budget the way it is so the government never shut down in the first place. They were pushing this continuing resolution for weeks. And if it was up to the Republicans, the government would have never shut down, but the Democrats used the filibuster to block it. And yeah, they had a goal. They were trying to win something for their side. But what ended up happening is Trump's approval rating dropped. Sure, so you got real clear politics showed it was the lowest of his second term. But now, um, low enough to make the Republicans move. So meanwhile, the Democrats started taking heat from their own base and the general public. So what happened? Moderates flipped just enough for them to get to 60 votes, and the game was over, right? And that's how it all went down. So what happened, right, with moderates flipping? But I want to get to the part Not only that I explained that moderates flipped and they got the 60 votes and the Democrats finally conceded, the part that blows my mind is the Democrats were coming off wins on off year elections that just happened, right? They pulled off victories in states like Virginia and New Jersey. By all accounts, they have momentum. So the logic would be use that political capital, stand your ground, force Republicans to actually negotiate, right? Wrong. They had 56 votes, just four short, and instead of digging in and pressing harder, they started walking. They started working the back rooms. They pulled a few moderate Democrats aside, the Republicans, and they said, "Yo, it's been 40 days. This is starting to reflect badly on everybody." And once they hit 60, it was a wrap. But now, of course, they're trying to spin it, right? The Democrats. They're trying to say, oh, well, we still won the elections. The shutdown lasted 40 days in U.S. history. And that's a strong show of resistance. Nah, bro, in my mind, that's a strong show of delusion. But that's like losing a boxing match but saying, well, at least I had lasted 12 rounds. Yeah, but you still lost. So you didn't walk away with the W, and even worse, you didn't walk away with any concessions, just vibes. And let's not act like this is brand new, because if you go back to 2018, the same story, another long shutdown, also under Trump, and people were saying, why is this happening again? But the shutdown that's currently, taking place and coming to an end. And the answer is simple. Trump makes the opposition go nuclear. That's why Trump derangement syndrome actually exists. Because the moment Trump backs anything, the Democrats immediately oppose it. And if it's something they like last year, even if it's something they helped write, because now it's all about image, right? It's all about not giving Trump a W, is my point. So even if they like something last year, what Trump said during the campaign or whatever the case may be, they're still going to oppose it because it's Trump. And Chuck Schumer, bro, he's the poster boy for this mess right now, because he voted against the resolution, not because he truly opposed it, but because he knew the progressive wing will rip him apart if he didn't. And Schumer's fighting for his life politically because younger Democrats want him out. And now he's in a position where even if he thinks Trump's right on something, he has to say no, period. And that's the rule now. So when people ask, why are these shutdowns happening under Trump? The real answer is simple. It's not just Trump being aggressive when it comes to negotiating. It's the fact that any policy Trump touches automatically becomes radioactive. And people are scared to agree with it, even if it's common sense. And that's not governance, that's WWE level politics. So now let's talk about this $2,000 payment Trump's talking about, right? Now this is where things get real murky, because Trump's saying he wants to give every American making under $100,000 a check for 2 grand straight up, and he's not talking about printing new money or adding it to the deficit. No, he says the money's coming from tariffs. So specifically, the massive revenue the U.S. is now pulling in from imported goods from other countries, and the claim is that after these $2,000 payments go out, whatever money's left will be used to pay down the national debt for the country, United States of America. So let's hit the brakes right there, because first of all, the math don't work, right? If you're making 330 to $350 billion a year in tariff revenue, and you're trying to give every eligible person $2,000, you're gonna burn through the majority of the cash just off top, and then say there's leftover to pay the debt. But it's like leftover where? Because that's like you using your whole paycheck to buy concert tickets and saying you use the change to pay rent. What change? So even if you did pull this off without borrowing, you're still injecting billions of dollars into the economy. And that's not neutral. That's just reallocation. And that's money going from a passive account, a debt payment, to an active circulation. So people are going to spend it. You know, a lot of low income or, poor, the class of, that class that's in poverty. They may have never had money, or every time they get a little bit, a decent amount of money, because we know the world don't have at least $1,000 for their emergency savings account or $1,000 emergency fund. You know, they're going to spend it because any little money they get, they're just desperate to have money and pull up in new cars or whatever the case may be, right? But they're going to eat it out. They're going to buy tech. They're going to take trips. That's demand surge, and demand without supply causes inflation. So even if it's not as crazy as during the pandemic with the printed money, it's still inflationary. And I get it. The argument is, well, this isn't new money being printed. True, but if that money was supposed to pay down a $2 trillion $2 trillion annual deficit, and now you're handing it to the people to spend on anything, it's going to move the needle because prices will creep up, maybe not explode, but they'll move. And Trump knows this, but you know what else he knows? He'll get the credit. He wants to be able to say, I gave you $2,000, not Congress, not the Fed, me. He wants it in check form, not just a tax refund. He wants your mailbox to say from President Donald J. Trump. And that's branding. That's a midterm strategy. And if he pulls it off, it's smart, risky, yes, but politically genius. I mean, this is politics, right? I mean, like I said, his approval rating went down. So this will obviously increase his approval rating because we have a generation now that voted for Zohran Mudami as the mayor of New York who wants instant gratification and handouts. And even though may have made their own self-inflicted wounds, they'll blame the world for their failures and still believe that they are entitled to something. And Trump knows that because this is part of politics. And however, most people vote with their wallet. That's just a fact. So if you look at it, let's throw in the Supreme Court angle because it matters. There's a case brewing over whether Trump even had the authority to impose some of these tariffs without Congress. And if the Republican majority Supreme Court says, nah, he overstepped, um, that's a horrible look, and it makes the whole plan look shady, even if there are workarounds, because the media won't cover the workarounds. They'll just run with the headline, Trump tariffs ruled unconstitutional. And that's the game, which I hope it doesn't. But I'm sure you heard Donald Trump or you seen Donald Trump talking about the Supreme Court, and the Democrats, hypocrites, whatever you want to call them, obviously coming at Trump for being able to invest in the economy, or I should say, tax other countries who import their goods over here to bring back money to America. And now, look, we said the Supreme Court, and now they're trying to say if the tariffs are legal or not. And Donald J. Trump has been talking about it in regards of the tariffs. He's been very, very transparent on Truth Social. I mean, like I always say, we have the most transparent president in history. You can't beat that. And he even said, look, people that are against tariffs are fools. We are now the richest, most respected country in the world with almost no inflation and a record stock market price. 401ks are highest ever, highest highest ever, and we are taking trillions of dollars and will soon begin paying down our enormous debt. $37 trillion. Record investment in the U.S. Plants and factories go up all over the place. A dividend of at least 2,000 a person, not including high income people, will be paid to everyone. So, I think the $2,000 is just to gain the midterm vote because Trump, it's about wins and losses, and Trump is a winning type of guy. He competes, and like I said, his disapproval rating went down. I mean, his approval rating went down because the people are disapproving him because you have Democrats lying and using the mainstream media to say that it was his reason for the shutdown. And that's why I like to have this conversation with you guys and educate you on who really there is to blame and who needs to be held accountable, rather Democrat or Republican, because I don't care about who is who. I care about right or wrong and what it really comes down to and why this government shutdown happened the way it did, because I'm here for the truth. So, like I say, when you look at the Supreme Court angle, and if the Republican majority of the Supreme Court says no, he overstepped, it's a horrible look. Um, and the mainstream media eat it up and say Trump's tariffs rule unconstitutional. And if the Republicans really want to push this stuff moving forward, they're gonna have to deal with the filibuster again, which is just 60 votes that caused the shutdown in the first place with the Democrats. And that's why this conversation keeps coming up about getting rid of it and Republicans having a House and the Senate. But if they don't have 60 votes, they can't move anything unless Democrats cooperate. As you see, they didn't want to cooperate with the government shutdown unless they passed on health care subsidies and extended the Affordable Care Act, which is another word of saying Obamacare, which only made insurance premiums go up, and the money kept going to insurance companies, which cover much of anything, and it really hit the working class people because any little income they made, if they did qualify for the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, most of the time they're spending more money than actual the coverage is covering, because most of the things they may go to get covered healthcare wise may not be covered, so they have to pay a high premium. And the health insurance companies feel as though, you know what, they need us, and we the one that's getting check cut from the federal government. So at the end of the day, we can do what we want and make the prices what we want, and you got to shut up and concede and take it, or you won't be covered at whatever we can cover you with. Because at the end of the day, they control the coverage, right? They can control what covers what, and then if it don't fit your lifestyle, that's your problem. Pay out of pocket. So it's really not affordable, is my point. But when you look at all these things, right, we all know that Donald Trump is not trying to wait, and Republicans, if they get rid of the filibuster, if they kill the filibuster and the Democrats take over in 2028, it's a wrap. And they'll go wild, pass everything, and say, hey, we didn't start this, y'all did. As in, he say, she say, the Democrats blame the Republicans. And it's the same cycle every time. So wrap it up. Yeah, the government's reopened, but the Democrats got nothing. They blocked this bill for 40 days, hoping to win big, and they walked away with scraps. And now the fight shifts to stimulus checks, tariffs, inflation in the courts, and the chaos ain't over. It just moved. And we all know that Donald Trump is focused on affordability, because that has been a big thing going on now. Even though I believe if people just waited, you would have seen the benefit of the tax cuts when you got your income tax. And also you will start seeing the benefit of the Trump's economy going into the second year of his 4-year term. Because think about it, he had to get all the money back to America, and then he had to get individuals who import goods into America, using us Americans, as we are the main consumers who make these companies rich, even other countries rich, because we control the market, because we have all the people, because we have the majority of the people, which are basically the customer base for customers and other goods, to get customers as the main customers for buying goods from other countries and stuff to get rich in the first place. So now that he said, look, we're going to tax y'all for selling to us American people, because it's only fair to bring the money back into circulating in our economy, in America. And you have to look at it that way. He's bringing the money back, and he's also making companies, if you don't want to be taxed, do your business in America, which will create jobs. And you got to realize this is all coming off of a Biden administration that had fake job numbers, fake jobs that really didn't exist, and everything was bloated, and it wasn't really effective enough in the best interest of the American people. It was just all for show, and it was bloated, and they juiced the numbers to make it like it was jobs that wasn't there. So it's a great reset, and it takes time before we start seeing the benefits. And I don't think we're really going to be seeing the benefits truly, with the Trump economy until next year, or going into some more of next year. But that's my take on it, with the whole $2,000 stimulus checks, or $2,000 dividend. I don't even want to call it stimulus checks. $2,000 tariff dividends. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. As always, we're here to have a conversation. Get this video a big thumbs up. It helps crush that YouTube algorithm. It's totally free. Catch you in the next one. As always, be informed so you don't be swayed with the whole propaganda and lies and misinformation and being misled, because the truth will set you free, let alone the truth will also weed out the fake, so you won't be fooled like other people, but you'll be just like me. Peace.